So we don't need this, yeah? Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the Compassionate, the Merciful, I am very pleased to be here with you, and also more pleased to have the chance to listen to your discussions. I pray that in the time that I have, I would be able to do justice with some of these important issues which are suggested for our talk today. The first issue is the issue of rationality and the place of reason or rationality in religion. Of course, this is something what you can discuss as a particular religious tradition or orientation, beliefs, or something more general about all different religions. So it can be something from your own theological perspective, or something as a question of philosophy of religion, which is then about all different types of religions. Maybe what most of you or all of you expect from me to say is something about Islamic understanding of this issue, and in particular that tradition of Islam that I adhere to. The issue of reason or intellect is one of the most fundamental issues for human beings. Sometimes I make this kind of humorous statement. I say, if human beings are happy to underestimate, or as a matter of humbleness to say that I have little money, I have little knowledge, sometimes, especially in some tradition, to be humble is very important. So maybe this person has lots of scientific achievements, but he says, I don't know anything, I am a student. Or a person is very rich, says, I am poor. But when it comes to our intellect or our, rational capacity, here is where no one is humble. No one is saying, I am a person whose intellect doesn't work. I am mad. I don't understand. This is where everyone feels that he is perfect. Why? One reason for this is because this is very essential part of us being human beings. I can think of myself and having no money. I can think of myself and having no power or no, education. Still is possible. But I cannot think of myself and having no reason. Being just a robot or being just an animal. So rationality is very fundamental for human beings. And it is very important that in the Quran, in tens of verses, God the Almighty asks us to think, to ponder, to reflect. Or God says there are signs in the creation for those who think. Or, in contrast, those who don't think, they are criticized why they don't think. For example, those who say, we just want to follow established customs or traditions of our society or our ancestors. For them, this is just enough. They don't want to try anything new. They don't want to think about anything new. They don't want to even hear. When we read the history of Islam, we find that there were people who were asking people of Mecca to put some cotton in ears so that when the Prophet recites the Quran, they don't listen to the recitation. This is not rational. If you don't feel insecure, if you don't feel weak, why you are worried of listening to someone? There is a story that when the Prophet was reciting the Quran during the night, even the leaders of the tribe of Quraysh used to go and listen secretly to the recitation of the Prophet during the night. And just before it becoming bright, they used to go back to their home, because they had asked everyone not to listen to the Prophet when he recites the Quran. And if people had found out that they themselves go and secretly listen, was a disaster. So one day, when it was just getting bright and the light was coming, they saw each other. Three of them, of the major leaders, they saw each other and they said to each other, "This is a shame. We ask people not to listen to this man, but we come here to listen." And they promised to each other that this is the last time they come. And then again, the next night they saw each other, because everyone was thinking that other people are not going to come. So again they made promise, and this repeated 3 times. So you see here there is a conflict. The rational side asked them to go and listen. There is something there, something that you cannot ignore. But their tribal interests, their political interests, their worldly interests asked them, no matter how good or sound is this message, we have to ignore it, and we have to ask people to ignore it. So rationality is something which is very fundamental, and the Quran, more than criticizing anything else, criticizes people who don't think, people who don't try to listen. We have a beautiful hadith from our 7th Imam. We are, maybe majority of people who are here are the 12ers. So we have 12 Imams, and the 12th Imam is in the occultation, and we believe he comes with Jesus. Of course, this is the idea of all Muslims accept, but not necessarily as 12 Imam, but all Muslims believe that Al-Mahdi, who is a grandson of the Prophet, will come in the end of time with Jesus, and they establish social justice. And this is also a very important indication of Muslims and Christians coming closer when we approach the end of time. So the 7th Imam, which is Imam Kazim alayhi salam, so 7 out of the 12, he has very beautiful saying about intellect or rationality. Those who are interested, this is in the first section of Al-Kafi, which is one of the major collections of hadith, written about 1,000 years ago, but the hadith goes back to the end of 1st century of Islam. So that is, the hadith goes to 13 centuries ago. In this hadith, Imam alayhi salam highlights the role of reason. And there are very profound statements. Once in the shrine in Qom, I had opportunity to talk about this hadith in 11 lectures. I have 11 lectures just on this hadith, Imam Kazim on intellect, which is in English on YouTube. So I just give one sentence of that hadith. Imam alayhi salam says that God has not sent messengers or prophets except for this, لَيَعْقِلُوا عَنِ اللَّهِ, so that people, through their reason, they come to know God. So the whole idea of sending the prophets was not to ask people blindly believe in God or just worship God. They all have come to help us to develop our own rational understanding of God. They didn't want to give us faith. They wanted to help us to develop faith through rationality. لِيَعْقِلُوا عَنِ اللَّهِ. Then Imam says, the best people in the response to the prophets are those who have best knowledge of God, and those who have the best knowledge are those people who use their reason better. And then he says, Inna lillahi ala an-nas hujjatain. God has two ways of communicating to us. One is external and one is internal. The external hujjah, the external proof, the external way of communication is coming through revelation, through the prophets. And this is where we all, followers of Abrahamic religions, we believe that God has revelation. Of course, in Christianity, when Jesus comes, then Jesus himself is the revelation. And before Jesus, God reveals to the prophets, but by the time that the testament changes, God reveals himself by sending his son. But we believe all in revelation. This is external. But then there is also internal way of communicating to us, and that is through our intellect. Some Muslim scholars have made this analogy that the prophets are externalized intellect. If there was a way for me and you to bring out of our spirit our intellect and put it on display, that would be a prophet. And if there was a way to take a prophet inside ourselves, that would be our intellect. There is nothing in us more pure and pious than our intellect. Even the criminals who end up with being in hell, their intellect has no problem. And this is why they say, لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير. Had we listened to the prophets or used our intellect, we were not ending up with being in hell. So even intellect of a criminal is not misleading him if he follows his intellect. But the problem is that they don't use their intellect. There is no way that intellect may betray or may mislead. So in our understanding, in this approach, there is absolute harmony between reason and revelation. These are two ways of the same God communicating to the same human beings. And there is no way that God would mislead us by giving one direction through prophets and religion and revelation and scripture, and another direction through our reason. Sometimes I use this example. I say, if I want to invite you to my home for a meal, and to make sure that you would definitely come and you find the address, I send you an invitation by post, and I also send you my son or my brother to bring you to my home. Is it possible that the address that my son or brother is telling you is different from the address that I put on the invitation card? What is written cannot be different from what is spoken. And if what the intellect tells us is different from what the scripture tells us, it means that we have either not understood what intellect says, or we have not understood what the scripture says, or we have not understood any of them. There is no way to understand both of them correctly and then have contradiction. Therefore, in every search for understanding religion, logic is needed. I want to share with you a beautiful analogy that one of our contemporary scholars has made about the role of reason in religion. There are different ways of understanding the role of reason or intellect. I keep saying intellect because I know that reason in some philosophical traditions has got different meaning. So I keep saying intellect so that I'm not trapped with rationality of some rationalist philosophers. So the analogy that he was saying was that reason is a light and not a key nor a scale. Now let's explain what does it mean. Imagine there is a building or there is a room, and this is religion. You want to enter into this new space. Some people say reason is the key to unlock the door and get into this new space. Of course, this is for the people who want to have rational approach to faith. Some people may say, no, we don't want to have rational approach, or we just want to jump into this. That's another scenario. But we believe that our embrace of faith also has to be rational. Otherwise, people may follow superstitious ideas and then after some time get used to it and don't find anything wrong with it. So it's very important that you have to be rational even in the first place. But what does rationality require is another issue. So to begin with, we need reason to bring us into religion. So some people say it's like a key. You unlock the door, you get into it, but then after that you don't need the key. So unfortunately there are religious people, they have used reason to come to religion, but then after that they don't use their reason. They come up with some understanding of the text of the law of religion which would be very destructive. This is the problem. Some people think that the reason has to be kept outside. When you are in the realm of religion, no place for reason. Just listen and accept. This is wrong. The other analogy is that reason is a scale by which you evaluate everything before coming to religion and after coming to religion. You check everything against reason, and if it is approved by reason, verified by reason, you take it, otherwise you reject it. But this is also a problem. Why? Not because we accept some of the things that reason rejects. No. In our tradition, of course some traditions are different, but in Islamic tradition, we never accept anything contradictory to reason. But reason is not the scale by which you can weigh every truth. There are some types of truths that the reason is silent about them. You don't need even to think about metaphysics or philosophy. Even about our perceptions through senses, reason is silent. You cannot understand through reason what is the taste of ice cream. You have to understand this by sense. Or if I say, use your reason and tell me how many people are in the next room. This is not something you can understand by reason. As we say in philosophy, reason is only to understand universals, not particulars. You cannot decide the number of people in the next room by using reason, because reason works only through universal concepts, not particular cases. So there are things that reason might be silent about them, but there is nothing that you can accept which is contradictory to reason. So we can have in religion something beyond the reach of reason. And this is what we share in all Abrahamic religions. There are many things that we know through the scripture. There are many things that we know through revelation that if we were thinking for thousands of years, we were not able to understand. But there cannot be anything which would be contradictory to reason. These are two different things: to be beyond or outside the reach of reason and to contradict reason. These are two separate things. The other thing is that we have to distinguish between decisive judgment of reason and personal opinions. Unfortunately, sometimes people, without being logically trained, they develop some kind of false arguments, and then they say this is what reason says. You have to be trained. You have to work hard. It needs several years of training and going through all the types of arguments, fallacies, and being equipped with the skill of arguing and reasoning. It's not that everything that I feel I'm happy with, I say this is what my reason says. Many people just guess and they say this is reason. You have to have what we call in logic demonstration or burhan, which is from formal aspect is verified, and also the materials, the premises which are used are sound, so that you can say this is decisive judgment of reason. So there cannot be any conflict between reason and revelation. Therefore, there is a rule that we use even in our jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is perhaps that part of religion which should be very much based on the scripture, on the text, because in law you are very particular about the letters of the law. But even in jurisprudence, reason is one of the sources that we have to refer for understanding what is the requirement of religion. And we have this rule: كلما حكم به العقل حكم به الشرع وكلما حكم به الشرع حكم به العقل. Whatever judgment is made by reason, the same is made by religion, and vice versa. So you see complete harmony between reason and revelation. Therefore, this contemporary scholar says, instead of saying reason is the key or the scale, it's better to say reason is a torch, is a light by which you find your way to the room, you open the door, and you use it inside the room. But when you are inside the room, you can switch on the light of revelation. Then you have both light of your torch and you have the light of revelation. But you need to have this. When you understand religion, when you want to understand the Quran, when you want to understand the Bible or Hadith, you need to use your reason. Otherwise you may come up with funny interpretations. So this is about rationality. And now I want to move on to the fourth question, which is about prayer. This type of rationality that I am talking about is very much mixed and combined with spirituality. Because not only there is harmony between reason and revelation, but also there is a harmony between our mind and our heart. Every human being, whether he is born or she is born to a religious family or non-religious family, to Eastern family or Western family, every human child is born with innate knowledge of what is good, what is bad. The Quran says, وَنَفْسِ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. God the Almighty has created us and inspired us to understand what is right, what is wrong. Yes, people may lose this innocence and purity that we have at the time of birth. If we keep ignoring the voice of conscience, that voice becomes weaker and weaker. And a time comes that that voice can become silent. If I do something bad, then someone inside blames me. If I keep doing it again, he blames me. But after 10 times, the voice becomes very weak. After 1,000 times, the voice becomes silent. After 1,000,000 times, it says, MashaAllah, well done, do it more. It can become opposite. You do bad things and you enjoy. You get credit from your self, which is contaminated. So, the soul in its intellectual side never changes, but in its a spiritual side can be affected by what we do. So it's very important to bring harmony between these two. Always to refine and improve our intellectual encounter with faith, but also to have a life of piety, a life of morality, to do what you understand to be good. Because if you don't do what you understand to be good, then gradually you bring a conflict between yourself. First, you understand what is good and what is bad. After some time, you don't understand what is good or what is bad because you want to justify your bad practices. So, this is where we have to be honest with ourselves. If we want to be in the best possible position for development of our intellectuality, we have also to make sure that we practice what we find to be right before it gets too late, before we lose our interest in moral virtues. So, rationality and spirituality should come together. And something else that I would like to mention, and sometimes I say to my Christian friends, this is also a kind of trinity that we believe in, is rationality and spirituality should come with search and concern for justice. A true understanding of religion cannot be indifferent to injustice. I remember when I was writing the book Shi Islam, Origins, Faith and Practices, which was first published in 2002, I was thinking of helping my readers who want to know what is Shia Islam to understand what is the spirit of Shia Islam. Because many people ask me, what is Shia Islam? What is the difference between Sunni Islam, Shia Islam? With all the respect that I have for other Muslim denominations, but I wanted to help my readers with what I think would give a flavor of Shia Islam. So I wrote a chapter called Major Characteristics of Shia Islam and dedicated that chapter to these three things: rationality, spirituality, and search for justice. Justice is very important. I cannot be busy with my intellectual development and spiritual practice and ignore hunger of people, oppression being exercised against some people, whether it be my people or any other human being. A true understanding of religion should also make you a person who is concerned deeply about issue of justice. Of course, justice should be first established inside ourselves, because you can be also unjust to yourself. But then it should be implemented in the society. The Quran tells us that justice is so important that even with respect to your enemies, you have to be just. Imagine if a person has killed my father, my mother, my children, I cannot do injustice to that person. I cannot do injustice to his children and say because he has made all this mischief, so he doesn't deserve justice. His rights can be ignored. No. لا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا. Quran said, do not let your hostility with some people make you unjust. You must be just even with enemies. Justice has to be observed universally. There is no exception. And Muslim ethicists have developed their theory of ethics based on necessity of observing justice in all circumstances. Telling the truth most of the time is good, but sometimes telling the truth can endanger an innocent life. So here telling the truth can be a problem. But justice is something which has no exception. It has to be always observed. I remember in 2004, 2004, I went to airport, Tehran airport, to welcome 4 Catholic friends who were coming from UK to come for dialogue. One of my Catholic friends, who is a Jesuit from Heathrow College in London, if you know Heathrow College, London. So he asked me, this is middle of night, Muhammad, what is the difference between Shia Islam and non-Shia Islam? So I told him these 3. I said, for us these 3 together are very important. To be rational, to be spiritual, and to be deeply concerned about justice. Then many times we met each other in different parts of the world, and he kept telling me, Muhammad, still I am thinking about those 3. And the last time I met him was in American Academy of Religion, and he said, I am writing a book, and one chapter of it is about these 3. In November, I was part of dialogue with the World Council of Churches in Geneva. You know, World Council of Churches is an umbrella organization for Protestant and Orthodox churches. There are hundreds of different churches that are part of World Council of Churches. And I talked about these 3. And then one of the people who was there is the Archbishop Sarkisian, who is head of Armenian Church in Iran. And he said, we also believe in these 3. And I said, yes, I think everyone should believe in these 3. This is not something that is Islamic or Shia. This is something that every human being needs. If we today have problem of extremism, radicalization, fanaticism, it's all because some of these 3 are missing. Either one of them or 2 of them or 3 of them. It's impossible for me to think that there are rational people who are deeply spiritual and concerned about purity of their heart and intention, and at the same time they try to observe justice with everyone, even with their enemies, and then we would have problem in the world. So I think this is a good meeting point for our traditions to get in serious conversation about how we can develop our spirituality, develop our rationality, and also be together a voice for justice, a voice for helping the people who are denied of their basic rights. I think I stop here, and thank you very much for your patience in listening to me and for the beautiful conversation that we had at the beginning. Thank you very much.
Where's the mic? So, first of all, I didn't do justice, and I partly blame it on my friend, was supposed to be the MC today. I wasn't supposed to talk, so I didn't introduce Dr. Shomali, which we're really happy to have him here and honored. Just a quick